Really?
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out here tonight. My name is Clay House. I'm the chairman of the Pickens County Republican Club. We have a wonderful group around us here that makes this organization possible, and I certainly want to thank those people who put this event on tonight. I also want to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight because you obviously care about our county, which I'm going to say is arguably the most important position that's on the ballot this time is the sheriff's race. A few housekeeping points. I'll let you know the restrooms are out that door. It'll be to your left when you exit the door. The men's and women's restrooms are there. We also have some water and snacks, and in honor of our law enforcement friends, we have some donuts for you all. So dig in. I'm going to open this up with a word of prayer, and then we'll get started. Dear Heavenly Father, God, thank you for allowing us to live in a nation like the United States where we don't have to have fear about gathering together, sharing ideas, learn about candidates, and being able to elect the officials that represent us. God, be with us through this next hour while we listen to these candidates. Allow them to share their message in the best way possible. Allow us to be civil and to conduct ourselves in a manner that's honorable to you. Through Jesus I pray. Amen. Amen. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So I'll share a little bit more about us as the club. We're the Pickens County Republican Club. Our goal is to educate voters. So we host forums and things of this nature for races all over the county. We have a sign-up sheet there at the back of the entrance. If you would sign up your email address, we promise not to bombard you, but we'll let you know when events like this are going on. We'd love to have you guys come out to more events. Also want to thank Serenity at Easley, our sponsor for this tonight's event. They graciously allowed us to have this space, so I want to put a big plug in for those guys and thank them for their support. I'm going to hand it off now to our Vice Chairman, Rick Tate, for the Republican Creed.
Good evening. As I usually say, I think this is important because this is a Republican club. We're sanctioned by the South Carolina Republican Party as an auxiliary group. These are the thoughts and the ideas that should bind us together as Republicans. And this is a Republican event, and you gentlemen are in the Republican primary. Right? I do not choose to be a common man. It is my right to be uncommon. If I seek opportunity, not security, I want to take a calculated risk to dream and build, to fail and succeed. I refuse to barter and, I'm tripping over my own words here. To dream and build, to fail and succeed. I refuse to barter incentive for gold. I prefer the challenges of life to guaranteed security, the thrill of fulfillment to the stale calm of utopia. I will not trade freedom for beneficence, or my dignity for a handout. I will never cower before any master save my God. It is my heritage to stand erect, proud, and unafraid, to think and act for myself, enjoy the benefit of my creations, to face the whole world boldly and say, I am a free American. One or two other little things here. I talked to David Harrison about a month ago when we were doing the invitations for this event. I was the one who spoke to David and invited him. And we were offering these gentlemen either this past Tuesday or this Thursday to try to accommodate their schedules. And David told me that he was going to be on second shift this week and he would be on duty and unable to attend. That's what he told me. So I was asked to relay that, so I did. The only other thing is we usually, the only other thing for me is we usually recognize elected officials in the group or leaders in the community. Amy Williams is here, she's on the school board. Heather Mitchell is the president of the Moms of Liberty chapter in Pickens County. Is any other elected officials here?
Betty Garrison.
Oh, there's Betty Garrison, school board. Anybody else? Oh, Roy Costner, Pickens County Council. Excuse me, Roy, I saw. Did I miss anybody? Thank you all for coming out and participating and being part of this. Thank you all for coming. I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Rick. So now the reason that we're all here, the forum for these fine gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you, and David, who's not here, for your willingness to serve. I'm sure you guys can attest more than anybody that it is quite a hassle, headache, and a lot of long nights running for office. So stepping up to serve, thank you for your willingness to serve our communities and for the service you've done through law enforcement. A few rules for tonight. Questions come from the crowd. If nobody wants to ask a question, then Rick and I have to come up with them, and nobody wants that. So raise your hand, ask your questions. The only rule we have is be civil, and the questions need to be directed to all candidates so everybody has an opportunity to respond. We're going to start with a 2-minute opening statement, followed by questions from the crowd. Each candidate will then have 3 minutes to respond to those questions, and then a 2-minute closing statement. So with that being said, our first gentleman tonight is Mr. Damon Hubbard. He'll kick us off. Thank you. Our timekeeper's right here at the front as well. She'll give you a yellow card, 30 seconds, red card, yes, stop.
How did I get the thing microphone? My name is Damon Hubbard. I'll tell you a little bit about my background, my experience. I worked 29 years in Greenville County, and throughout that 29-year career, I rose through the ranks up to major over operations when I left last February to run my campaign to be your sheriff. Throughout my career, I had the opportunity to do hold many titles and do many jobs. I was over school enforcement at one point in my career, and being in school enforcement, I learned how to do risk assessments and add layers of protections in our schools to keep our children as safe as I could in a safe learning environment, which was big. It was good to learn that and to have that, to be able to go out there and do those things and try to keep our children in our schools as safe as we possibly can. I got promoted to captain and then appointed director over emergency management. And when I was over emergency management, I was able to handle natural disasters. I went through 2 tornadoes, several floodings. Greenville County, if y'all know anything about Greenville, it can rain for a few hours and Greenville could flood somewhere. Plane crashes, hazmat spills, a lot of different things that I did outside of being in the criminal side of it. So I am thankful to have that. And I really think those things have set me up to be in front of you guys today to be running as your sheriff, because I've got such a broad spectrum of training in different areas. I also, as major, I was over 250 employees, and I co-worked a budget with the sheriff and another major and the chief. We all worked a $56 million budget. So I've been working a budget for 10 years. So I know how to work a budget. I know how to allocate manpower. I know how to restructure. I know how to make the changes that need to be changed in order to provide you guys the best services we possibly can. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tommy Blankenship. I just want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. There are numerous other places you could be, but you chose to come hear what the sheriff candidates have to say. I am first and foremost a follower of Christ. I am a husband. I've been married to my wife for 19 years. I have 3 beautiful daughters. If you think running a campaign is hard, try living with 4 women. Just kidding. They are one of the most wonderful blessings I've ever had. But I've had the privilege of serving Pickens County for 19 years this month. I've served in multiple capacities, beginning with uniform patrol. I was then promoted to a narcotics detective in 2007. I served in that capacity for 11 and a half years before being promoted again to the sergeant over our community action team. Did not get to spend as much time there as I desired because it was my first opportunity to dip my toes into leading a group of men day in and day out into the dangers that they face consistently. So I did that for right at 11 months before I was promoted to the training lieutenant, where I currently serve the Pickens County Sheriff's Office. In that capacity, I am in charge of certifications and training for every one of our 160 sworn positions, making sure that they are of good service to you. Because at the end of the day, a good deputy is what we want to turn out. I'm also in charge of the quartermaster position, which is equipment, their uniforms, and everything that falls underneath that. I am so glad you're here, and I look forward to serving you as your sheriff. And I pray daily that God would make me worthy to serve you. Thank you.
To reiterate what Tommy said, I want to begin by thanking each and every one of you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here tonight. This is easily, at least in my opinion, no offense, the most important race in Pickens County. And I think your presence here is a testament to the interest that exists in this race. A little bit about myself. My name is Chuck James. I've been in law enforcement for 19 years. I have 2 bachelor's degrees, one in political science, one in history, and a master's degree in criminal justice. 17 years ago, I was fortunate enough to join the Pickens County Sheriff's Office. I joined as a deputy working the Easley area. Over the past 17 years, I've steadily worked my way through the Pickens County Sheriff's Office from deputy to chief deputy. I've been every rank in between. I've been a master deputy. I've been a detective where I worked violent crimes on behalf of Pickens County. I've probably been involved in virtually every homicide investigation in this county for the past 15 years. I've been a sergeant over a criminal investigations unit, later a lieutenant, eventually captain of all criminal investigations for Pickens County, ranging everything from simple larceny all the way to homicide. And 2 years ago, I was fortunate enough to, when our previous chief deputy retired, to assume the role of chief deputy. And in that capacity, I'm number 2 in command of the Pickens County Sheriff's Office. I lead a team of 192 employees, manage an $18 million budget, and I develop and implement crime suppression strategies on behalf of the Pickens County Sheriff's Office. And I think that's important because each one of those steps along the way taught me something and built me into the leader that I am today. And that's why I'm running for sheriff.
How are y'all doing? My name is Michael Tickner. I was born in 1977, graduated from Easley High School in 1995. Out of high school, I joined the United States Marine Corps. I'm currently married to my lovely wife, Misty. We've been married, it'll be 23 years in 2 months. I have 3 children. My son's graduating from Liberty High School on Saturday. I have a daughter who's going into 9th and a son who's going into 5th. I started my work as a police officer in 2006 with the Liberty Police Department. I was there for a while serving there, and then I felt the call of God on my life to be a pastor, and so I moved my family to Kentucky and became a pastor up there. And I never thought I would honestly be doing this job again. I did what I felt like God asked me to do, and I came back and I started working for the Pickens County Sheriff's Office in 2018, and I have been on the road. I've worked traffic, I've been a school resource officer, high school, little school, and I've also worked on the sex offender registry. When I felt called to be a pastor, one of the things that I was shocked by is I felt very called to do it, but no one asked me. No one asked me to preach, no one asked me to be their pastor. And so I went to my pastor and I said, I just don't understand. I said, I feel like this is what I need to do, but no one will let me do it. And he said, sometimes in order for people to take you seriously, you have to show them that you're serious. And he encouraged me to go to college, and he said that when you go to college, people will start taking you seriously. And it worked. It really did. People started asking me when I went to college. And so when I felt led to do this and to run for sheriff, I
set out to earn a master's degree, and I earned my master's degree in criminal justice policy and leadership. And I did that because there are things that I've done, but I haven't done everything, and I wanted to fill in the gaps.
Thank you. So Tommy actually gets the first question from the crowd. So now it's time for crowd questions. Rick has a microphone. He's going to be bringing that around. So raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question, and he'll come find you.
All right, introduce yourself, please, and give the first question.
Sean Owens, Bakersfield. I just have a question for each of you. It's very simple. Do you live in Pickens County?
Appreciate the question, Sean. Yes, I do live in Pickens County. That is a prerequisite for you to be able to run for sheriff. I actually reside on 178 just above Highway 11.
I too live in Pickens County. I live just downtown Easley.
I live at 211 Hillendale. Hillendale and Liberty, and literally, if you want to see one of my signs, it's at 211 Hillendale and Liberty.
Yes, I have lived in Pickens the last 35 years. I pretty much raised my family here, and all my kids graduated from Beasley High School. So I'm very proud of that, and they're all doing well in their careers. All first responders. Got 4 kids, and they're all in the first responder business. So very proud of that, and I credit the school district here in Pickens County for that, to be honest with you.
Thank you for the easy question.
Introduce yourself, please.
Heather Mitchell. First of all, I just want to say thank you all for being here. I think Pickens County is so lucky that we have so many great candidates running for sheriff. My question, hopefully it'll be an easy one, but just wanted to know from each of you what your experience is with direct supervision of personnel. How many, how long have you managed direct personnel? And then also the type of budgets that you've managed and experience with.
So my experience in management and leadership goes back about 11 years, I think, at this point. When I first became a supervisor over our criminal investigations unit. At that time, I supervised a unit of 8 criminal investigators. Eventually, I became a lieutenant supervising that same unit. When I became captain back in 2019, I supervised roughly 50 employees. I think it's 48, 49 employees. But as chief deputy of the Pickens County Sheriff's Office, I supervised 192 employees. And my experience with budget is I'm involved in our budget on a daily basis. We have a $17.7 million budget. I'm involved in the implementation of that and development of that. And we figure out how we're going to spend money, obviously, judiciously. And yeah, so that would be my experience.
So my experience came from when I was a pastor in Kentucky, and being a pastor of the church, it's a different type of budget. You have the committees, they're asking for money, and we would sit down and look at the budget and see what they've asked for, and they would have to show basically what they're going to use it for, and then we would approve it or not approve it. In a church, you can't go over budget. There's only so much money, and so we always hit our budget. But I think one thing that's interesting about serving in a church and being a pastor and having those be the people that help you is it's uniquely different because they're not paid. I was literally the only one, me and the piano person was the only one getting paid. And so all the people that were serving with me, is what I would call it, were unpaid. And so when you're managing paid people, you boss them around and you tell them what to do, and they better do it. And if they want to get promoted, they better do a great job. And if they want to stay working, they better do it. When you're working with people that are all volunteer, which is what I did, it's a uniquely different way of leadership. You have to come alongside of them and encourage them, meet their needs so they feel like, hey, this guy cares about me. And so they will continue to show up and continue to serve. And so that's something that I would bring to the sheriff's office that I think would be uniquely different is all the employees I ever dealt with were unpaid. And so if I can get them to help me and we can accomplish the mission, I can certainly get people that are paid. And that's just by spending time with them and being with them.
My first supervisor's position was in 2002 when I was promoted to sergeant, and that was in uniform patrol. So in uniform patrol, I had anywhere from 12 to 15 deputies that were under my supervision, and I worked with those guys day in and day out. I was still out on the road, answering calls for service with them, and responding to calls, and handling things that need to be handled, and guiding them at the same time, and making sure that we did everything that needed to be done. When I was promoted to lieutenant, I actually had my own platoon. I had Charlie platoon at the sheriff's office, and I had about 35 deputies, and I was also the commander over dispatch. So I had those folks that were under my command too when we were working. So from there, I moved up to captain, and that's when I was appointed director over emergency management. And that was my first taste of a budget. That budget that I had, that I was directly responsible for, being the director, I was responsible for everything that happened in the county as far as emergency management went. But that budget was right around $300,000. And when we responded to an incident in emergency management, depending on the size of the incident, if it's a large-scale incident like a hunt for a missing person, I could have upwards of 200 to 300 people out working that scene to try to find that person, try to locate that person that was missing, whether it's a child, adult, or whatever. But then when I moved up to major over operations, the budget, $56 million. It was a whole lot more than $300,000, so it was a lot more responsibility that I took on. And at that point in time, I had 250 employees under my command. I had all the uniform patrol and dispatch. So it was a pretty big undertaking. Thank you.
Greatly appreciate your question, and I love that you utilize the terminology of directly supervised, because there's a big difference, in my opinion, of managing a large department where you have numerous employees than when you directly supervise. And I also believe there's a difference in supervising or managing and leading. And there are numerous books, and one comes to mind when you talk about leadership and the number of people who lead like a Marine. And the Marine Corps, and I'm sure Mike can attest to this, they have a rule, a golden rule, where you don't lead more than 4 men at a time. And there's a reason for that. So direct supervision, my first role would have been in narcotics. I was not supervisor by my title, but I was very much the leader of that unit just below our lieutenant, because I was the senior agent there, and there were no decisions that were made within that unit that I was not a part of. And I led those men through numerous undercover operations, through numerous drug operations and investigations that we did. When I was a sergeant of the community action team, I directly supervised six guys that were our street level drug interdiction guys, as well as our warrants. When I came out of there and I moved over to the role of training coordinator, I do not directly supervise anyone other than our records unit, which I'll be honest, I don't supervise those ladies. They tell me what they're doing, and I say, yes, ma'am, you're doing a great job. Because I would never believe that I could tell them how to do their job. They're far more wise than I am. Other than that, I am the deputy commander of the SWAT team, so I partly command and supervise that 18-man unit. When it comes to budgets, being in the pastoral ministry, I've done a church budget. I actually work a small portion of our chief deputy's budget with the training. I submit itemized requests, and then I work with the result that I get. So thank you for that question.
Any other questions?
Yeah, here we go. This lady right here is next. Ladies first.
I'm Margaret McJunkin. I've got a question for all four of you. If you get a phone call about having a well check on an elderly lady that is bedridden, 450 pounds, if they get around in your bed, you not know what a well check is, how
So when it comes to the sheriff's office, police department, a well check for us is making sure that the person has the food that they need, the water, the electricity. That's what we would come out and check, is to make sure, like if you called and said, we're concerned about my aunt, we've not heard from her, then we would go out to that house, knock on the door. If we couldn't get in the door, we would get permission from the family to break the door, and I've done that. I broke windows and I broke doors, and then we go in, and then typically EMS will come in with us, but we don't leave until we know that that person, your aunt or your uncle or whoever it is we're looking at, is okay. We don't leave. They'll either go in the ambulance, or we will make sure a family member is going to make sure that they're taken care of. But if they're not, if they're lying in their own filth and the family's like, oh, we've been doing a great job, then we will emergency protective custody, take them into emergency protective custody, and DSS will work out where they would stay, and basically that's how that it should be done. And I can see that you're getting upset, but that's how it should be done. Whether that's how it's been done, I can't speak for that, but that's what should happen when that happens.
Every call that comes in reference to a welfare check on, whether it's elderly adult or a child or whatever, those calls need to be answered, and they will be answered, and they will be investigated to the fullest extent, just to ensure that we are doing everything we can to protect our folks out there. I think we have, what I'm looking at doing if I get elected is compiling a list of folks in this area that don't have family that can check on them, and try to set up some kind of way that we can actually go out and check on those folks to make sure they're okay. Because if you have family here and you're able to go out and check on them, that's great. But there's also people out there that are in the shape that you're talking about that don't have people that can check on them. So, we need to take care of those folks too, but we need to have some kind of system, and I've been thinking about it a lot, and I think just getting a list would be the first thing we would need to do of all of our citizens in the county that are in that condition, whether they're bedridden, can't get out, they have no way to get around to get their medications or whatever. I just think we need to have something going to help protect those folks to take care of them when family's not there and not available to do it. And I don't know if it's a perfect plan, but we got to start somewhere because it's a big issue where this is happening all across the country, not just here, but it happens everywhere. I saw it many times in Greenville in my career, 29-year career, where people were not checked on in those conditions, and it's not good. It's not what we need to be doing. We need to be doing more, and we can do better. And if we don't try, then we're failing right off the bat. We've got to try something, do something for them.
Thank you for your question and your care and concern. I can see that this hits you deep, and it comes from a heart of experience. A well-being check should originate and consist of checking for necessities of life first. Then it should be quality of life, making sure that that individual is not suffering from bed sores and infections, even if it requires that deputy to ask for medical assistance because they're not qualified to make all of those decisions. And I agree with Damon wholeheartedly about a program to take care of and check on our elderly. The problem with government sometimes is we see a problem and we fail to realize there's already someone out there trying to help with that. And instead of trying to facilitate another program and pour funds into that, why don't we partner with those that are already doing those things? And first and foremost, the way your question comes to me, just today I was delivering Meals on Wheels, and the lady with Meals on Wheels actually called me because the family was unable to get in contact with their loved one. And I was able to explain to them, yes, I checked her mail, I pet her dog, I checked on how she was doing, I gave her mail, her food, explained to her that there's a frozen meal for Monday because there will be no deliveries, and she is in good care. And there's no reason that the Pickens County Sheriff's Office can't partner with Meals on Wheels to help make that program more readily available for our citizens and have qualified individuals that can check on them, that have immediate radio contact with other first responders. What's important to the boss is important to the men, and because a program like that is important to me, it will trickle down to my deputies.
Yeah, a well-being check is something that is routinely done in law enforcement, and it's something that we have to take seriously. When you're going to a home, your job on a well-being check is to assess that that person, the general welfare of that person, is taken care of. And as Tommy and David said, that's food, that's electricity, that's water, and in the situation you described, that would include, as Tommy said, bed sores, to make sure people are not taking advantage of that individual, or financially exploiting them, or even physically exploiting them. I think that is a very important issue. I think that's something that we have to take very seriously. I'll tell you, to talk about the groundwork that's being laid for potential to build upon this, and mind you, let me back up real quick. If something was to be found, that needs to be turned over to the Special Victims Unit. That is a unit that is comprised entirely of 4 investigators who investigate crimes exactly like that, or instances where somebody has been left to suffer on their own. And we have to take that very seriously. But to build on that, the Special Victims Unit recently has been going out and meeting with dementia patients and the families of dementia patients, because a big concern that we have in this community are those who wander off. And we've established Project Lifesaver, and we check on those people now monthly, and we've replaced the batteries in their vans. And I think that's, as they said, that's something that we can build upon. But we also have to engage with our community stakeholders, our 501c3s and things like that, that can help supplement where our shortcomings are coming from. Thank you.
Is there any way I can talk to y'all afterwards?
Yes, ma'am.
Next. Right here. Go right here. I'll work my way to the back of the room.
Hi, my name is Art Mako. I would like to ask what your perception is of the homeless situation in Pickens County now, and how would you react to an epidemic of homeless if all of a sudden we had a lot for some reason?
The homelessness problem, it's widespread, and I know what you're talking about. There's a lot of people out there that don't have, proper shelter, food, the things that we, basically need, that we take for granted daily. And it's sad. A lot of the folks out there that are homeless have some kind of addiction that is the reason they're out there. And then some have just fallen on bad luck, bad times. And, maybe it's out of their control. There's nothing they can do about it. At least there's nothing there that they can see ahead of them that they can do about it. So it's something that we can actually, go out and check on and make sure that they're, okay, and what we can do to assist them. There's all kinds of nonprofits out there that will step in and help. The Red Cross is a good one that comes to mind. The Salvation Army is another one. But, we could direct our deputies to go out, and if they find somebody homeless and they're needing help, we can actually get them to a shelter and get them started into rehabilitation programs through, I know the Red Cross offers it, and the Salvation Army is real good. They've got tons of programs that will help folks get back on their feet. But the thing is, they have to want it. They have to want you to help them. Because I don't mind telling you, I dealt with a man who had a beautiful home, a life, and everything, and would leave about once a month and go get under a bridge just so he could drink his alcohol, because his wife didn't like it. But he would sleep under a bridge for about a week, sometimes once a month, sometimes once every couple of months. So in that situation, that's just what he wants to do. Not much you can do with that. But there are people out there that will accept the help, and they need the help. And that would be the steps that we could take to get them started in the right direction and get them rehabilitated and hopefully get them on the right track.
Appreciate the question. So there's a delicate balance of a dichotomy there, where you have a human being that is a creation of God that deserves love and compassion. But then you also have the community impact of the homeless individuals, their actions that they take when they're out in the community. So to mirror something that Chief James said originally is, first and foremost, is to reach out to those programs that are established and to utilize what they have already gained so that we can give those people a place. When I say that, I can't help but think of a former pastor of mine, Barry Dilworth, and how I watched him deal with an individual that came to our church many years ago seeking money, food, things of that nature, mostly money. And his response to them was, where did you start? Where did you come from? And as they mapped out how they got there, he said, I want to help you. I love you, and I want to do everything I can for you. But first and foremost, I need you to return where you started. And I want you to hit every church on your way here. And if everyone else denies you assistance, we will help you. Well, the same thing needs to happen in Pickens County, because there's an influx of homeless individuals who aren't Pickens County homeless. They're homeless from other areas. And they need to return to where they were homeless originally and start with the assets that are there. And if they get to Pickens County and no one has given them the assistance they need, then it's our job to help take care of them. And with that being said, a place like Family Promise comes to mind, where their goal, and I know their mission, their heart is to end homelessness. That needs to be their mission. Will it ever happen? Not likely. It's just like our mission is to end crime. It'll never end, but you never stop fighting for it.
Unfortunately, the homeless situation has become not just an epidemic here, it's become a national epidemic. And I think first and foremost, we have to address the underlying issues. You have substance abuse being primary among them, and then you have mental health issues. And these are situations in which we have to work with behavioral health and mental health organizations that we have here in Pickens County to address it. But to Tommy's point, the issue of homelessness doesn't really originate in Pickens County. The ones that we have here, the ones that we tend to encounter are coming from the lower part of the state, the Midlands, Asheville, or even Greenville. And so what's happened is we have a resource in Pickens County at this point that other people know about. And they've brought homeless people to this resource. I think for us to address it, and if we have a long-term epidemic, what we have to do is we have to work with the resources that are being provided to where these people aren't being let out during the day. If they go into a shelter at night, let's give them vocational training during the day. Let's work towards that. Let's teach them a skill so that they can become a contributing member of society, so that maybe we can rectify this issue. I believe that alone will really reduce our issues with homelessness, but it is an ongoing thing. Unfortunately, we have other agencies, law enforcement agencies, which again, Tommy and I can both attest to. We've even had a conversation about this. They're bringing these things into our community. And we have to work with the agencies that are involved with that to make them stop. But it's because they know there's a resource here, and they're bringing that resource, and they're going into the shelter, and then at night, they stay there, but during the day, they're roaming the streets.
So the last homeless person I dealt with, I took to the homeless shelter. And when I got to the homeless shelter, the guy came out and he said, not him, he cannot be here. And I was like, what? And they said, well, he tried to stab somebody last time he was here. And what has happened and what I have noticed has happened is, like they've said, but it's the truth, we're getting everybody else as homeless. Because, and it's what's happening in Seneca. Seneca is completely covered up, and that's because good people in Seneca said, we've got a homeless problem, we should open a homeless shelter, and so they did. Well, then what happens is all the people that have been kicked out of other shelters because they tried to stab somebody or they're on drugs get brought to Seneca, because Seneca's already, or the other places have already tried every homeless. They're like, not that guy, just like they told me. No, he's not coming. And so then they call and that shelter says, we're open, we'll take him. And what happens is they will go to that shelter, spend the night, break the rules, and when they break the rules, they will be let out the front door. And now they're your homeless person. When they were Greenville's homeless person, they were Anderson's homeless person, What I think would be the solution to this is if we decide to attack it, and a group says, a Christian group or another group says, we would love to attack the homeless problem in Pickens County, I would like to talk to them as the sheriff's office and say, please check the people that come and make sure they're from Pickens County, and we will do our part for the Pickens County residents that find themselves homeless. But if we open, and it sounds horrible that you would turn a homeless person away, but if we take in other people's homeless, there's a reason they brought them to us, and that's because they burned every shelter where they were. And so we're not taking a homeless person that is fallen on bad times. We're taking a homeless person that's ruined it everywhere else they've gone.
And if you would, introduce yourself. That's your question.
Toby Capiz. I've lived in Eastleigh about 38 years now. My question for each of you would be, can you explain to what you see as the three top priorities in fixing things? And I don't mean street signs, I mean corruption, crime, assaults, violent issues. I know they're there, but we don't see them a lot. And certainly haven't had it creep into us like other communities have throughout the country. And the second one would be, I think, if you can tell us what, do we have the right judicial system? Do our lawyers, do our judges, do they give the correct type of punishment that's necessary?
Could I ask you two questions if we run a little over 3 minutes?
I was about to say, can we give a 2-minute cushion on this one?
Not saying I will, just.
No, yeah. So let's, so normally 3 minutes, we have 5 minutes on this.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Everybody say.
Yeah, so top 3 priorities, so to speak. So when I look at the issues within the community, you can talk about rampant drug use, you could look at assault and batteries, you can look at domestic violence. At the end of the day, it's a culture issue. It's a society, our societal culture. So as the sheriff, our first step, I believe, would be to attack the culture of the agency. First and foremost, to make sure that our deputies understand their role within the Pickens County Sheriff's Office. They understand their purpose, why they even exist. You know, I've said it many a times that the Pickens County Sheriff's Office doesn't exist so that adults can have a job. It doesn't exist so that you can have a place to get a paycheck. It doesn't exist so you can build a retirement. It doesn't exist so that you can have, you know, your health insurance. It exists because there's a group of people that deserve a service, and they pay for that, and it's our job to supply that service. So it's making sure, first and foremost, that we set our culture at our agency to understand that it's a citizens first culture, that every decision that we make has to be made with what's in the best interest of taking care of our citizens. You know, when we look at the homeless issue, that's why, and Mike and I are willing to say, we have to turn someone away, because first and foremost, we got to take care of our citizens. So I would say culture is the first thing. One of the second things that we suffer from at the Pickens County Sheriff's Office is that an individual like myself that has reached the rank of lieutenant, which would be mid-level management, could leave the Pickens County Sheriff's Office and drive across a river either direction and get a pay raise at an entry-level position. So if you want good, qualified officers, we've got to attack that. And my recommendation is the same recommendation I provided to a former chief deputy before Chief James. I provided him a spreadsheet that had a step pay model that mirrored the school district of Pickens County, but also looked very much like what Greenville County has, where officers are going to be rewarded for their time in service. Because at the end of the day, if a man or a woman is willing to serve the citizens of Pickens County, and they do so effectively that they earn their position every day, and they've done so for many years, they deserve to be rewarded for that. That's how we'll have good officers that are going to serve you effectively. And last is going to be some community outreach. If we can build a good culture within our agency and we can have good officers, then it's our job to go out into the community and make an impact in every aspect that we can. That's why I've coached youth sports, I've coached high school football, I've coached middle school football, I serve as a YMCA mentor, I'm a youth pastor currently. I do everything I can to impact our youth, because at the end of the day, if you want to impact a community, you got to change the hearts and the minds of the youth. What's his second question? Judicial, wonderful question. So In the grand scheme of the world, we have the best system ever invented. We really do, because it is designed to punish only wrongdoers, and it's designed so that an individual, when they are found guilty of a crime, it is almost impossible for them to actually be innocent. The downside of that, and what I see with the 13th Circuit here in Pickens County, is that there's a lack of checks and balance for a lot of our solicitors to have the opportunity to dispose of a case without a lot of pushback. I personally have had cases where an individual was looking at 15 years to 25 years minimum mandatory sentence in prison, walk away with something like drug court, home incarceration, or probation. And those things shouldn't exist. The ability for that to happen invites corruption. When an attorney can have a conversation with a judge, and that judge allow a drug trafficker who is poisoning our communities to walk away with anything less than double digits, it invites corruption. And that's something that I offer as a candidate for sheriff. I can't change your solicitor, but you can. And I can provide you all the information you need to know to make sure that you make an educated decision when that election comes around. Did I get it under 5? I felt like I talked really fast.
Oh, I just want to clarify your question. Are we saying the underlying causes of crime and corruption? Is that what you were asking?
Well,
Well, I'm just saying, there's a bunch of people watching this live, and if you don't have this, they can't hear you at home.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, yes, because it's a matter of, it starts somewhere. We have to see it near us. And then when do we do something to stop it? Not talk about it, but stop it.
Yeah. So I think to address the question, the three issues that I see as kind of the underlying current of crime in Pickens County are, first and foremost, we've talked about it already, substance abuse. And that's, again, something that we have to continue to work on with our partners, such as behavioral health, which is something that we presently do in the Pickens County Sheriff's Office. Back in February 2023, we utilized grant money from an opioid settlement so that we could put clinicians in the jail. And research shows that if you can provide services to the jail, such as counseling or even vocational training, you can have a 15% reduction in recidivism. So that's one way that we're addressing that. But there's a factor that addresses, that feeds into substance abuse, and it's one that we don't talk about often, and it's the socioeconomic status of Pickens County. Presently in Pickens County, you have almost 17% of the population that lives below the poverty level. That feeds in to drug culture. People that are inherently grew up in a dirt poor environment and they feel like there's no hope often turn to drugs as an outlet. So I think we have to have a larger conversation as a society as to how we're going to fix that. And that's our school system. You have also, I don't know that there's a correlate here, but you have about 16% of the Pickens County that has never graduated high school. These are things that we need to fix. The other issue, and this is a big issue, and this is one of the top concerns for me, is growth. Pickens County is growing by, depending on the estimates you look at, 12 to 15% over the last 15 years. We have not grown public safety 12 to 15%. And my concern is, right now, if you look at the Pickens County Sheriff's Office, and I do this all the time when I'm with Michael and I we're on a speaking circuit together. If you guys don't know, it's like the Ringling Brothers. But when we go places, I brought this up in front of him before, he works for a resource-rich department. Oconee County serves 80,000 people. They have 123 deputies. As Tommy pointed out, people at our office wear a variety of hats. We do more with less. We have 115 deputies, and we serve 57,000 more people. Right now, Pickens County has 1.3 deputies per 1,000 citizens in unincorporated areas of the county. The FBI says we should have 2. We're going to have to close that gap, especially as we look to the year 2030, when there is growth that's 7 to 8% projected growth by the year 2030. So I think those are factors that feed into crime. To address the judicial issue, well, let me back up on the growth. To address the growth concern I have, I want to present a 5-year strategic growth plan to council day one and get their approval on. This is where we are now, and this is where we want to be by the year 2029, and get them to buy into that and commit to it. The other thing is, to address the judicial issue, My concern with the judicial process is we have judges that don't want to send people to prison. Instead, we have a probation process that we put people on. I'll tell you, I had a case, and Tommy brought up one of his cases, so I'll bring up one of mine. Years ago, I had a gentleman shoot at his wife and his child, and ultimately shot his child in the chest with a .45 caliber. And that man received 5 years home incarceration because he had the right attorney, and the judge was far too lenient. And I think that's the concern. And the solicitor's office did everything they could in that case to try and get 25 years out of it, but they didn't. So I think we have to address that, but we also have to be willing to build more jails. We have to be willing to pay our people in SCDC a little better so that we get a higher quality guard. And then maybe we can start putting more people in jail and keeping them longer.
So, Pickens County, if somebody has stolen your stuff, if somebody's beaten up their friend or their wife, if you've been hit by somebody that's uninsured, it almost always goes back to drugs. You trace it back, it'll go back to drugs. And I think in order to solve our drug problem, we need to get serious about who we put in charge of ridding us of the drugs. When I was in the Marine Corps, when I first started, I did not like the people that I was in the Marine Corps with because they were mean and jerks. They just weren't nice. But the longer I was around them, the more I thought, if we go to war, I want these jerks with me because they're rough. Their personality fit the task that they were asked to do. And I have friends that I like and I think are wonderful, but I certainly wouldn't take them to war with me. And when it comes to drugs, my personality, I'm a kind person. I'm not the person that should be in charge of ridding this county of drugs. But I will put somebody in charge that has a rough personality, and they're probably going to stir it up, and I'm probably going to get a lot of calls. Because here's what happens, and I've seen this happen. You get deputies that want to rid this whole county of drugs. Ever since they were 13, that was what they always wanted to do. But when they start nailing it, the sheriff's office starts getting calls because grandmas and grandpas, those drug dealers have grandmas and grandpas that love them. They have moms and dads that love them. And so they call and say, you're picking on my son or you're picking on my grandson. And so what sometimes happens is the officers are told that, hey, take it back a notch, find another crime, do something different. But as sheriff, when I turn the rough personality loose, I'm going to let them run. And when I get calls, I'll just let the people know, hey, the last 4 times we pulled them over, they had drugs in the car. So yeah, we're going to keep doing it. And I think that would be something that's necessary for us to do. But I will say this, our drug problem, if you were to take it to its source, drug use and abuse starts when kids are 12 and 14 years old. It's not adults. It starts when they're kids. And so if you want to get to the root of the drug problem, you got to start speaking to the kids. And what I would do as sheriff is I would bring a DARE-style education and try to work with the school district to bring a DARE-style education to our students. And I say DARE-style because DARE is old. When I taught it, I've taught over 100 individual classes myself. I've been in a resource officer for 8 years, 6 years in Pickens County schools. But the DARE program, they're almost talking like these guys have got cigarettes rolled up in their sleeves and they're leaning against the Camaro. And we know that's not what's happening. It's vapes, it's pills. But it would be that type of program, but it would be a real program where we share with kids. Because a kid, if they watch the news, fentanyl kills. If they see the signs, fentanyl kills. And so the kid says, if anybody ever offers me fentanyl, I'm not going to take it. Fentanyl kills. But what they don't realize is no one is offering you fentanyl. They will offer you a different pill or a different gummy, and it will be laced with fentanyl, and that's what kills. And so the kid will take a Xanax or something like that and think, this will just help me study, and then they end up dead. But kids need to know that. They need to know that's what's going on. And so I believe if you were to educate our kids, and it'll take a little while for it to happen, but if you start educating the kids about what to look for, and DARE also gives them ways to say no, and gives them other alternatives and things to do. But when you start educating the kids, you start to lower the amount of buyers. And when you lower the amount of buyers, the sellers will move on to greener pastures. And about the judges. I will say this. My first ever domestic violence call, I took the husband to jail, and I went back to the wife to get my paperwork done with her, and I said, I put him in jail, you're going to sleep good tonight. And while I'm talking to her, she's on the phone with somebody, and she's really irritated. I said, who are you on the phone with? She said, my husband, they've let him out of jail. And he was literally coming back to the house. And so, and I had barely made it to her house, and he's coming back to her house. And so, the pressure has got to come from the citizens, where they're letting the solicitor know, and these judges know. It's Facebook. You get on Facebook, and you start sharing stories about how they didn't charge enough. You need to start putting pressure on them. They need to know the citizens don't think that's funny, and we're not happy about it. And if you care anything about your job, you will change the way that you do your job. And so that's what I have to say about that.
Our next question is, oh, I'm sorry. I jumped in too quick. Apologies.
That's fine. Yeah, drugs. I know y'all hear this repetitive, drugs, but drugs, honestly, are probably responsible for about 8% of the crime that happens in any county. So it's a big problem. People will steal from their own family to feed that addiction. I've had cases where kids, on drugs have taken their grandmothers, on fixed income and taken every dime out of their checking account, savings account to feed that addiction. So it is a huge problem. They'll come out, you'll be out cutting your grass, you leave your lawnmower for a minute to go get a drink, and you come back and your lawnmower's gone. There's probably somebody that needed a few dollars to go get their drugs to take care of that drug problem that they have. So it's a huge problem. And one of my priorities is to form a drug enforcement unit. I want to work with all the municipalities, all the police departments, all the police chiefs in this county, and form a drug enforcement unit so we can start attacking it at a higher level. Right now, most of what we're doing is street level buys and street level arrests and those kind of things. If we can start going after these drug dealers and start taking everything away from them, I'm talking about their property, their checking accounts, their homes, their cars, and we can start putting them in jail for longer periods of time, then we can cut back on some of these problems as far as the drugs, drug problems go in our community, the drug dealers and everything else. But we have to work together in order to make that happen. Just the sheriff's office can't make that happen. It's got to be a team effort to make something like that happen. And that's what I'm hoping to do if elected, is to form a drug enforcement unit that can go after the dealers versus the guys out there buying it on the streets. Because if you take the dealer down, you're going to take down pounds of drugs versus a few ounces. So it will put a bigger impact on them, which will help reduce overdoses and the crime rate that we have in the county. The other thing we'll need to do is we need to add more men to uniform patrol as far as rolling around, detecting and deterring crime that's going on in the county. And we can do that immediately without impacting taxpayer dollars. I've got a plan that we can put in place that will put guys on the road that are currently working at the sheriff's office. They'll continue to work their full-time assignment that they have now, and they'll go out and work the road a few hours a day, maybe once or twice a week, to provide extra manpower to the road, which will help in what we're talking about now to decrease the crime that's going on in the county. I do like the drug enforcement or the drug education for kids. I remember the DARE program, and I think that's a good idea. I do think we need to start educating kids, but we've got to educate them at the right age. You can't get a kid too early or too late on drug education. So that would be something that we could look at. And then also the rehabilitation through the detention center. Right now there's 300 plus inmates in the Pickens County Detention Center. We can provide them, and I know they're already doing it, they've just started it, they're starting to give them mental health counseling and those kind of things, but we need to give them some rehabilitation so when they do get out of jail, hopefully we can help them succeed and not come back through repeat offenders. They go in one, come in the front door, go out the back, and then within a week they're going right back through the system again. We've got to do better, and there's a lot of things out there we can do. And I do believe some of my plans that I have will help reduce the crime and help in this respect. As far as the judicial system goes, judges need to be elected like we are. If you elect a judge and you put his job on the line, then that judge is gonna put somebody in jail instead of what Chuck just said about the guys getting out, with him, Michael said about the guy getting out on the domestic violence. That should never happen. She shouldn't be in fear of her life and not be able to trust in the system to protect her. Because with him going to jail for beating on her and then her turning around and being out while he's still on scene, that's ridiculous. If you start electing judges instead of appointing judges like they do now, then you put them on the election cycle like we're on, guess what? You vote them in, you vote them out. If they do what we're talking about now, put them out the back door, put them right back out the same door they came in, and tell them they're not welcome here. We'll bring another judge in who will actually give them the time that they deserve. And we also got to work with our solicitor too. Have y'all ever heard of plea bargain? Listen, you talk to your solicitors in your 13th circuit here, Greenville and Pickens, they love plea bargain. And when you plea bargain with a criminal, that criminal very rarely goes to jail and serves time. They normally get the house arrest, they get the probations, and they get away with absolutely no time. And that has to stop also.
Our next question is from Mr. Roy Costa.
Thank you. First, I want to commend you guys for putting yourself out there. All the candidates, all of you got for being here. We're all very thankful that you're making that choice. And Mr. James, I'll agree with you. It is one of the most important elections in the county. My question has to do with you've talked about budget, you've talked about managing people. It is extraordinarily important, but it's also important to have a relationship with county council. So I'd like to ask, what do you like about the relationship that currently exists between the sheriff's office and county council? And what's one thing that you might do differently to help with that relationship in county council?
Great question, Roy. And I'm glad you and Henry are here so we can, hopefully you guys can attest to this. If you recall when I took over as chief deputy 2 years ago, relations between the Pickens County Sheriff's Office and County Council at times were somewhat rocky. I think you guys can agree to that. I would say over the past 2 years, through communication and our willingness to come to the table together, we've been able to work together very effectively. And I appreciate both of you guys for that. You're both sounding boards. I'm in a unique situation here compared to the other candidates here because I have a relationship with all the county council members. It's been fortunate that I'm able to have that relationship and communicate with you guys. As for it, and again, that's what I like the most. I like your openness. I'll say there's been times in which I've been told I don't like that, but convince me otherwise, and I can appreciate that. I can respect that. I think that's the way it should work. As for what I would change is, I believe we need a sheriff that is up front at council meetings, because the reality is, you guys as elected officials don't want to hear from the chief deputy. You want to hear from the sheriff. So if I get elected sheriff, my plan, anytime that there's an issue between council or the sheriff's office, or if I need something, I want to be up front and center in a public forum so we can have a conversation about this, so that all these fine people can see transparency in the process and what's taking place. Because I do think we need a sheriff who stands up there and not only advocates for the office, but does so publicly. So that's what I would change.
So, to answer your question, Roy, at the Oconee County Sheriff's Office, that's where I work as the sex offender registrar. At the Oconee County Sheriff's Office, when I got there, the sheriff was making, and he's had a raise since then, but he was making $89,000, and I was making, I think, 43 or something like that. When I was at the Pickens County Sheriff's Office, I know it's less than 140 because I said 140 and you told me that ain't right, but it's 120. They based that on, we had to pay to get in this race, and it was based off the salary, and they made me pay it like it was 140. They fixed that. They fixed that. But the sheriff was making 120, and then I was making, I think, 38 at the time. And so you're talking almost $100,000 difference, and then at the other sheriff's department, like a $40,000 or $50,000 difference. And so when the Oconee County Sheriff goes to county council and asks for money, he's looking out for his people, and they have given him anything that he's asked for because they know he's not about himself, he's about his people. And as sheriff, and you can record this and play it back to me, I don't want any more money. I think it's a lot as it is. It's way more than I've ever made in my entire life. So I don't need any more money, but my people do. They have, a lot of them, or some of them have worked second jobs. They're cutting your grass, they're doing all sorts of stuff. I was a police officer and worked Domino's. I was a police officer and made hot dogs at Joe's just to pay the bills. So what you're paying the sheriff is plenty. I can pay my bills very well. But the lower part is where they're going to need the money. And as sheriff, I'm going to be looking out for the lower part. But what I bring to the table is, if that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm doing. And I think that's very important for council to know, that you're looking out for your people, but that it's also, if we give you the money and earmark it for a certain thing, that's what that goes to. And that's very important. And once you break that trust, I don't imagine you guys would give me any more money. And I understand that. And with that understanding, if I go to bat, that's what I would do. But also, I think it's very important that the person that comes, like the sheriff that comes to speak to you, has his junk together, has his numbers in order, and knows exactly what he needs, why he needs it, and why it's important. And I think if the sheriff is not somebody who's articulate, or somebody who has a background where they do, like they've been in an education to where they know how to put the numbers together in a way that's very understandable, I feel like that you'll struggle. And I bring that to the table as well. That's what I got the master's degree in Masters of Science for, and we did a lot of that type of work in there. So that's what I'm bringing to the table.
Yeah, I mean, just building a relationship with county council would be top priority for me, because listen, if I don't have a good relationship with county council, then when I come to you and I need something to provide services to protect all these fine folks in this room, I'm not going to get it, and I know that. So building that relationship, a strong, honest, trusting relationship, is very important to me. Just like, I'll give you a prime example. I want us in Pickens County to have a consolidated dispatch center. I don't know if all you guys know what that is. That's all your first responder dispatchers under one roof. That is extremely important for us to have. And, you know, I would give up my percentage of the dispatch. I mean, I wouldn't give it all up. I'd give up all of it but a third. But my opinion on that is I would take a third, EMS needs a third, and fire needs a third. Okay, we all need to have stake in the game. We do have stake in the game. But if you divided that responsibility up equally between the three disciplines out there that's providing services to our county, then that's one of the things that needs to happen. And those are the things that I'm willing to do in order to build that relationship and that trust, to make sure that we're providing the top quality services, again, for our citizens, because that's what it's all about. If you don't have that trust and you don't have that good relationship, then we're not going to have anything. It's going to be bickering back and forth, and the citizens see that. They know that. I know of incidents already that's happened between the sheriff's office and council, so I already know that. And when you give me money and you tell me it's to add manpower to the sheriff's office, you know, we put it out there, that's what we're going to do, then that's what I'll do with that money. But if there's money there that's left over from, like, say, a uniform budget, let's say our line item is uniform, we've got $50,000 left over in that budget, I should be able to come to you and talk to you about moving that money to another area. Maybe I need some radars for some traffic units I want to form. Or maybe I need a bulletproof vest for some of my guys. You know, there's things that we need on our side too. So like I say, if we don't have that trust, we don't work together, then we're not providing the services that we promised we would provide to these fine folks here and our citizens in Pickens County. So it's all about the trust and doing what we say we're going to do. Don't say you're going to do something and then not do it. You've always got to follow through and do the best you can do to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that communication piece, and make sure that you do what you say you're going to do.
So I'm in a bit of a weird position to answer your question, Owen. Being an employee for the Pickens County Sheriff's Office for 19 years, everything I've ever heard about my councilman has come through a filter. And one of the first things you learn in law enforcement is there's always three sides to every story. There's one side, there's the other, and then somewhere there in the middle is probably the truth. So trying to measure what the relationship has been during my tenure, I would have to say that the thing I disliked was I felt like sometimes egos took control on both sides. Because from the position I was in, I would hear one side constantly. So I knew there was another side to the story. And I could see where my comrades were allowing their egos to take control. At the end of the day, it's why I say that the most important quality in your sheriff has to be a humble man. And the reason I say that is because you can't name a single good quality that a leader should have that I can't connect and extrapolate how humility leads to that. Because at the end of the day, your mission and my mission should be the exact same. Our desire should be public service, taking care of our citizens, and doing so as cost effective as possible. And making sure that we don't confuse the word conservative with, as I heard a man say, and I liked his terminology, with kicking the can down the road. So what I look forward to is building those relationships with you guys, sitting in a room and having those humble conversations of how does this best serve the citizens of Pickens County. Because I know at the end of the day, I hope that that's where your heart is at, because that's where mine will be. And we may disagree, and that's okay, because that's what leaders do. We both see the pinnacle we're trying to climb, which is the best service we can provide. But we may be looking at different ladders. But at the end of the day, as long as we're climbing in the same direction, it's all going to be okay. And when we talk about the dispatch center, because that's been a topic, and I've had those conversations with other councilmen, is my response is what's best for the citizens of Pickens County. Because I don't care who's in charge. I don't care who gets the accolades. I don't care who gets to stand in front of a camera and say, I did this. What I care about is when someone in this room calls 911, they get the service they need as soon as possible. What I care about is when they need fire service, that's what they get. They don't get a deputy, they get a fireman. When they need EMS, that's what they get, and they get it as fast as possible, because there's people in this room whose lives have been changed by how fast that service can get there. Thank you.
And I should point out that, well, the gentleman that asked the last question is co-chairman of the Pickens County Council, and he's on the ballot this year too. And right after I introduced the elected officials in the room a while ago, Henry snuck in. And Henry is also on county council and will also be on the ballot this year. And Henry has a question.
You guys kind of stole thunder on the question. I'll just lay this out. When I joined the council, I had no idea that our dispatch was broken up across the entire county. You know, in Liberty, you had somebody sitting at a plastic table using their cell phone to do dispatch. You know, easily you've got a different source. You know, then the sheriff particularly owns the majority of the other dispatch. So we're building a world-class dispatch center so that you have one central place with the hardened technology to protect it in storms and whatnot. And we're thinking that we can do dispatch for the entire county. I think it'd be hard not to beat what was going on in Liberty if we did that. So I want to make a deal with you, and then I have a second part of the question. Eric, so you're asking for more sheriff's deputies. I will make a deal that I will not ask you for the money back if y'all give us the dispatch. So it's 20-something folks. So we probably want to have them over 3 or 4 years. And I will not ask you or debit the budget you're getting so you can put all that on the roads to go fight crime. That'll get you closer to what that ratio you're looking for in Oklahoma. Will you give us dispatch in exchange for a whole bunch of more cops? And then second thing I want to ask you about is y'all don't do a public, the sheriff doesn't do a public thing like we do, so when people are mad, they come to us and raise hand at us. Well, first of all, I can't do anything about your litter. I can just call somebody and ask them about it. So we went to the reason why I asked the guy before James if he needed to borrow a pair of big boy pants was because they didn't want to fight litter. They didn't want to police it. We funded those seats and then they put them somewhere else, which is great places. They put them in really useful positions, but you guys can also have a big litter problem. So we asked them to do garbage cops. They wouldn't do garbage cops, so we had to hire our own garbage cops, right? Environmental enforcement. We call it environmental enforcement. Will you take that back so those folks have arrest powers? Will you get the administration of our county out of the policing business and put y'all back into it in regards to litter and whatnot? Because these guys are making a wonderful, wonderful impact for us, but they can't carry a gun, and they can't arrest. And we're miles away from being able to do that. And so, again, we did have some contests of will, and then at the end of the day, we had to go hire our own cops to take care of a problem these folks want to deal with. So can I make a deal with them to dispatch? Some of you guys kind of touched up on that. And can I make a deal with them, these garbage cops, and get them over there to work for y'all, so y'all can call them real cops, and if you have a big emergency, you can deploy them to do something else other than doing environmental enforcement. Can we make a deal for my one vote?
I feel like their first questions were a lot better than my first question. So, I absolutely agree that dispatch should be in the same spot. At a meeting I was at one meeting ago, when I worked for Liberty, we were low on dispatchers, and so when you didn't work the roads, you had to work dispatch. And I realized when I worked dispatch, because at the time, at night, you had to dispatch for Liberty City and Pickens City. And I really was not good at that. Karen Ronk, at the time she worked there, she said, you have to split your ears so you're hearing two things at one time. They have never split, and I could only hear one thing at one time. But I gained an appreciation for those dispatchers because they literally could. I could be telling them something in their ear that I really wanted them to look up on the computer. They are listening and typing in what the police officer's saying, and they're also dispatching if they needed fire or EMS. They were working that angle all at the exact same time. And so if they're in the room, and I've seen dispatches where that happens, and I've seen them to where they'll be doing something and they'll need something and they'll simply lean over and say over their shoulder what they need, and then the other person makes that happen, and it's not a phone call, it's not typing, it's just literally they just said it. And so that's very important, and I definitely would agree that having them all together, because, and Tommy's right, he said it, I think he said it is probably better than I would have said it if he didn't say it first. Is we want you guys safe, and that's I don't need your money or anything like that. I just need people safe, and so that's a good idea. But as for the litter, I do think that we can take that on and make sure that it's done and done consistently, and that if you give us litter officers, that's what those officers do, is the litter. Because I know that, again, that goes back to trust. You trusted us, we let you down. But I'm saying if you trust Michael Tickner, even if everyone hates me for doing what I said I would do, that's what I'll do. I'll do what I said I would do.
Like I said a minute ago, I would give you I'd take a third. I think we all need to share equal responsibility with this thing, because I think if we do that, we'll all do better. I did really think everybody would do better, and I think our response time, obviously response time is going to be better. And I don't know if you folks know what a drop call is, but I'll tell you a quick story. If you call with if you're having a heart attack, or a family member having a heart attack, and you call 911 from your phone, it's going to go to the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office has to transfer that call to EMS and fire people to respond and take care of that. When they transfer that call, there is a possibility that call can be dropped. Okay, can you imagine your family member having a heart attack and a call being transferred and gets dropped? It's happened from Greenville, big old Greenville County. It's happened there. But we have to work together to put this dispatch center together. I know council wants it as bad as everybody else wants it, but I don't think giving it up completely is the right thing to do. I think giving up, right now, if I'm right, I don't know if I'm right about this. I know the sheriff has more stake with the dispatch side of it than anybody else in the county. He's got more responsibility for the dispatch and pick. I know we did in Greenville, so I'm assuming the same in Pickens. But we don't. If I give up all of it, then I don't have any stake in the game. Okay, my deputies are out there answering calls for service. I've got to have something to fall back on. I need to have some input on what we do and how we do it, because I know a lot about it. I've been through those changes as far as changing radios and those kind of things. So if you get information from all three of us, fire, EMS, and law enforcement, we would build a lot better system. A system, we're gonna be able to put a system in place that's gonna be the right system for Pickens County. So, I would definitely give up, 2/3 of it, but I would want to keep my third, because I think that, as me being the sheriff, I should have responsibility in it just like everybody else does. But as far as the litter goes, if you give us money for litter control officers, then that's where it should go. But I'm also a firm believer in, we used to use the guys in detention. Used to go out and pick up trash. You used to see it all the time in Pickens County. Then COVID hit, and that went away. Well, are we still facing the big COVID crisis now? Can we not get those guys back out and let them help? Because I know Pickens County, I know we're spending money on contractors to come in and do that litter pickup now. I've seen them doing it. Somebody's paying those guys to go out there and pick that trash up. So why can't we start utilizing what we have in place that's worked in the past? Why can't we bring those back and put those in place again?
Thank you for that, Henry, and I want to thank you for the lesson you taught me a couple years ago of make sure you know the full story before you make an accusation. And that's the big boy pants story. Is I believe the terminology I utilized was defunding police, because again, that filter that I received was that I just lost any opportunity for some extra training money and extra equipment money to fund those litter positions. Appreciate that. And that's a lesson we could all learn about social media. Know the full story before you make a comment. So my answer to your question is super fast and simple. Sort of piggybacking off of Damon here, I 100% unequivocally would give you dispatch to get more officers, with the understanding that as long as there is some quality control, and I would ask that from the sheriff's office, from the fire department, from EMS, that there's some stake and some buy-in in selecting and training and making sure that the product is good, even if it's just our opinion, because that's our lifeline. That is my uniformed patrol guys, their lifeline is that dispatch. And there are standards that need to be met. There are standards that need elevated even today to make sure that those guys are being taken care of, and to make sure that our policies and our procedures match up. And it goes back to sitting in those war rooms, having those hard conversations, but coming out on the same page, which I know we can do when we all focus on our citizens. And with the litter, I actually had that very same conversation with another councilman who's not here when we were out picking up trash up in District 3. I told him, I said, if you want this done right, it needs to be done by deputies, by Class 1 certified officers that can investigate any crime, that can make an arrest for any statutory crime that's been violated, and not Class 3 advanced officers who can only effectively police litter crimes, and any other crime they're not allowed to touch.
Let me begin just with the inmate litter pickup issue. With respect to inmates picking up litter, I'm an advocate for it. But you got to understand the Pickens County Sheriff's Office as a facility is a pre-sentenced facility. And that pre-sentenced inmates are not convicted of a crime, and through the 13th Amendment cannot be compelled to do so, or to pick up litter or any forced labor. That's why we utilize trustee labor. And we used to have a stockade that was very robust pre-COVID, and that stockade held a whole bunch of sentenced inmates that were able to do that. I would love to add sentenced inmates, particularly through the SCDC, to do that. To answer your question, I just want to clarify, we're playing Let's Make a Deal, right? If you were telling me that I could have more deputies on the road answering calls in exchange for dispatch, I will absolutely give you that. That is a commitment that I am happy to make, but I have one caveat. And my caveat is that there be a governing board that the Sheriff's Office has representation on, to where we can influence how our deputies are dispatched, how they're being treated. But if that means that I can put more deputies on the street, absolutely, that's a no-brainer. With respect to your question about litter, I'd like to say that the litter positions that existed, I believe it was 2013, they were reallocated. Well, prior to me, I did not reallocate those. I want to clarify that. But yeah, I would absolutely take them. I have no problem taking them as Class 1 officers and putting them in the Sheriff's Office. We've done the same thing with animal enforcement. We could put it under the same unit. We just need to figure out how that structure works, and I think that's a conversation that's worth having.
Henry wanted to get involved in that, and I said, wait a second, because I didn't want to be unfair to the other three guys up there, and let you get into a back and forth with Chuck that the others didn't get to participate in.
Rick, I think we're getting pretty close on time. Then get time for one more question, then closing remarks.
Right here. Introduce yourself and ask your question.
Dennis Gallagher from Easley. Two-part question, but yes or no probably work fine. What would be your response to a mandate from Washington to pick up lawful weapons from residents of Pickens County? Second question is, do all the officers that need vests have vests in Pickens County? Thank you.
On the first question, Washington D.C. didn't elect me. If I was your sheriff in Pickens County, you guys elected me as your sheriff. And there's a simple thing we can do. I can bring you all in a room like we are now, right now, and say, hey, I need you guys to be deputized. I want you to be my deputy. We'll all raise our right hand. You guys take the same oath I took, and guess what? You carry your gun. Nobody's going to take your guns away from you as long as I'm the sheriff of Pickens County. Like I said, you guys are the ones that go into the polling booth and you check that block, and that should be who the sheriff answers to, you guys, not somebody from D.C. or wherever. You know, Pickens County is the only thing that the sheriff of Pickens County should focus on. They shouldn't be focusing on things that are going on outside of our county. Because always, you know, you got enough problems, enough headaches, dealing with everything you got to deal with as a law enforcement officer, especially the head guy. But that will never happen in Pickens County, I can promise you that. Whether I'm sheriff or somebody else, one of the other guys is sheriff, that's not going to happen. We know that. And tell me the second question again. Sorry. I know the bulletproof vest for the deputies. Yeah, I don't know, but well, let me put it to you this way: with Tommy and Chuck sitting here, these are great guys. Tommy and Chuck sitting here, I can about tell you, they're going to tell you right after I get through that all our guys have bulletproof vests, because that is one of the most important things that a law enforcement officer has to protect themselves from the dangers that they face daily. So I'll let them tell you a little more about that.
DC's not coming to get your guns under my charge. And I actually was asked this question the other day, and it's funny you talk about deputizing people in this room. My comment to them was, we'll fill Death Valley 3 or 4 times over, and we'll deputize citizens, and then we'll go on about our business, because you will be protected under their own law, which is the LEOSA Act, which allows a law enforcement officer to carry their weapon anywhere they want to outside of federal buildings. So at no point in time would we ever be rounding up and taking guns. The best question is a great one for me, because that's actually one of the things that I do. First and foremost, when I took over training in 2019, I noticed we had an issue with some of our uniformed patrol officers who were issued vests that were in date, not wearing them. And I had multiple conversations with them trying to encourage them to wear their vests, and could not convince them that they needed to. They made comfort-based decisions, which could ultimately lead to some hazard. So I started working with our command staff and got approval for a load-bearing vest that goes on the outside of the uniform that became part of the uniform. So there's no way that you can meet the uniform standard without wearing a vest. You would literally have to be out of uniform and be sent home before you could go without a vest. Every single officer at the agency is issued a bulletproof vest, and I cycle those through based off of necessity and need of who has the newest and best. Uniform patrol officers, and our SROs, anybody that wears a uniform wears a vest every single day. So they get the new vest first. So when someone like Chief James, myself, or a detective that keeps their vest in their trunk 80 to 90% of their stead, When their vest is up, when it's out of date, I then order a uniformed patrol officer a new vest, even if his is, and they last 5 years, is what the manufacturer recommendation is, that they're replaced every 5 years. They're not guaranteed for ballistic protection after 5 years. So even if their vest is only 2 to 3 years old, I will order them a new vest because they wear theirs every day. And then I will take their panels and their carrier and I will cycle it back through to one of our non-uniform personnel, because in my opinion, the guy that's wearing it every single day, that's out here on the front line, stopping cars, going to domestic violence calls, needs that vest, and he needs the best that we can give him, more so than I need it, and more so than in any administration or detective, because it's going to sit in a trunk for the majority of their shift.
The question about Washington and guns, this is probably, we kind of all joke amongst ourselves, this is probably easily the most asked question we get. So we've all answered it a variety of times. And I'll lead with the same thing I lead with every time. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right for the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. As your sheriff, I will not support any unlawful gun grab by Washington. And I recognize the executive authority of the sheriff as the chief law enforcement officer of the county, regardless of what federal alphabet agency decides to show up here. So I will not support them. I will not aid them. And just like these two said, I would also be open to the idea of deputizing citizens, trained citizens, to help protect us. I'm not looking to get in a shootout with federal agents or anything of that nature, but I do think there would become a time where if we have to stand up, we stand up, and we show them we're not going to put up with that. And I'm prepared for that. With respect to the question about vests, I think Tommy answered it about as well as it could have been answered. The reality is that wasn't always the case. What he just explained was not always the case for the Pickens County Sheriff's Office. I know my first 10 years there, maybe, I had a vest that was well out of date. And we make sure that's not the case anymore. And our deputies are cared for. And our frontline deputies are our first priority when it comes to equipment like that.
So I won't take a bunch of time. In Pickens County, when you call 911, sometimes it takes a long time for us to get there. Even if we're in your area, some people just live a long way away. And so for the time that you call to the time that we get there, you'll be solving your own problems. And so we don't want to take your guns. You need to be able to take care of yourself. And so I would agree with all of them. We're not going to do that. And whatever that takes, if we all end up on the news, then that's how it'll be. But we're not taking your guns. And for the vests, they know more about that. So.
Yes, so Tommy gets the opening last statement, and then we'll pass it back around to Daniel to close us out.
Opening and closing.
2 minutes. 2 minutes, close the statement.
All right, so obviously I'm standing behind a mic, and I have warned every single person that's ever heard me speak, do not put a mic in front of me if you don't want to hear about God. And I have not had a question quite yet that has given me that opportunity to profess my Lord and Savior, so I'm going to do that real quick. I am a follower of Christ. I was saved at 19 years old. I'm a part-time youth pastor, and that is what drives every decision I make. That is what guides my moral compass, is my relationship with my God and the Bible. So first and foremost, that's something that you can count on from me as sheriff. After that, I am a believer in humility and leadership through service. When I say humility, it doesn't mean that I stand before you as a man that lacks ego. I don't stand before you as a man that would say I lack pride. If anything, I suffer from those tremendously. But the difference between me and many men that I know is I recognize it. And I wake up every day and I pray that God will take that from me. Because the biggest mistake we can ever make from a leadership position is being egotistical. Because it can take you from a good leader to a terrible leader. Leadership through service. And what does it mean? It means that the man at the top serves the most people. And that's who I want to be as your sheriff. I have shown through my 19 years at the sheriff's office that I am a man of service. I served way before I ever even thought about running for sheriff. I've been a mentor, a coach, a youth pastor, Meals on Wheels, any opportunity, Foothills Fentanyl Fight, any opportunity I can to make the citizens' lives better, because I understand that every leader, to be a great leader, has to find people to serve. And the sheriff serves the citizens, and the sheriff serves the deputies. And if you ever truly want to find yourself, you have to lose yourself in the service of others. Thank you.
I want to begin, or I want to end, I suppose, similar to how I began, thanking all of you for coming out here. And again, I want to thank these gentlemen for not having any other things going on, because they felt the need that this was important enough to stand before you and answer the questions for our community. So thank you guys. We're entering into, as I said before, the most important election in Pickens County. And it's the most important election because it's not just about, law enforcement. It's about a detention center. We've touched on communications. It's about courthouse security. But it's also about your freedoms, your rights and privileges under the Constitution. And that's the most important part. There's a lot of people that will downplay the importance of experience in this race. They'll tell you, a sheriff needs to be somebody that rides around in a car. I will tell you this. I think the next sheriff for Pickens County needs to be somebody with large-scale management experience, budget experience, a strategic vision for how to combat crime in Pickens County, and somebody capable of delivering tangible results. Since I became chief deputy 2 years ago, I began to restructure the agency and add resources. The first thing I did is I got rid of the Fox team. Roy and Henry probably remember how unpopular that was. I got rid of that and reallocated those resources back to uniform patrol, adding more deputies to the street. The next thing I did is I began adding canines at no cost to the taxpayer. We used seized asset forfeiture funds to put canines back on the street. And over the past 2 years, Pickens County has experienced the second largest reduction in property crime in the state of South Carolina, a 20.25% reduction. We now have the third lowest violent crime rate, and with the lowest in per capita crime in 13 of 19 statistical categories when compared to our neighbors. So why I'm running for sheriff is because I want to not only make this place a safe place to live, but a model for policing throughout the state.
So 2 things. The first thing is, when I'm the sheriff, I will protect the reputation of the sheriff's department. What I mean by that is, if a deputy is found to be sleeping with somebody else's spouse, they're going to be let go. If they're beating on their own spouse, they're going to be let go. If they've been found to be lying, they will be let go. 95, probably 97% of deputies are awesome. But there's about 3% that do bad things, and if they are not dealt with, they make the sheriff's department look bad. And so I'm going to make sure that that 3% has no place at the sheriff's office. The second thing, and something that makes me uniquely different than the rest of these guys, is when I started this campaign, I decided, I felt like God led me to do this, but to not take money from anyone while running for sheriff, because I felt like when you take money, money often comes with strings, where people would like a favor or a get out of jail free card because their son got arrested for a DUI. I haven't taken any money from anybody. Anything that you've seen of me, I've paid for through overtime. I told my wife I wouldn't let this affect our finances, and so I spent $10,000, and it's all overtime over the past 2.5 years. So you don't see my signs. If you base who's doing good based off of signs, I ain't gonna make it. But I believe I have the silent majority. And so I just wanted you guys to know that's why you don't see signs. If you're wondering, is this guy going to make it, and why have I never saw any of his signs? That's why.
Thank you guys for being here. It is nice to see that this is important to you guys as it is to us, this sheriff's race, because it is the most important elected official in this county. Your law enforcement guy, your sheriff, is the top law enforcement guy in the whole county. So it's extremely important, and I appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to listen to us and ask us all these great questions, which tonight, I appreciate the good questions. It was a lot of good questions from you guys, and I really appreciate that. We talked about budget a lot tonight. When I was a major of operations, I was asked to transition the sheriff's office over to another weapon. And it was going to be about a $300,000 purchase for the sheriff's office. So I've talked to the sheriff and asked him if I could handle it my way when he approached me and asked me to take on this assignment. You know, I readily took it on. And I asked him to let me handle it my way. What I did is I found some seized guns in our property and evidence room and started selling seized guns legally, not illegally, it was legal. But I did sell seized guns from the sheriff's office, property and evidence room, and I was able to transition the sheriff's office from one weapon to another, $300,000 purchase by doing that. It didn't cost the taxpayers a dime. It didn't cost Sheriff Lewis any money out of his budget for me to do that. That's just a prime example of having experience with a budget and knowing how to work a budget, squeeze every dime you can out of it, but also look at other avenues to fund what you need. Grants are a great tool out there for everybody to look at. You can find grants just about for everything. We have a detention center that has 315 inmates in it right now. The food costs about $500,000 a year. There's a grant out there for that food service. So there's money out there if you know how to look for it and you're actually eager enough to go for it. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here.
As a club, we don't endorse individuals, but I've got to say the slate that we have offered to serve for sheriff is a wonderful slate. And I want to thank you all again for your willingness to serve. And I want to thank the crowd. These have been wonderful questions. You guys have been anywhere else, and you got to hear exchange between council members, Henry and Roy, sharing information, their insight. A lot better than Facebook, I'll say that much. Thank you all again. Thank you all for coming again tonight. Don't forget the sign-up sheet that we have in the back if you want to be on our email list. I hope to see you all again very soon. Thank you.
And eat the donuts.
And yes, please eat the donuts. Watch my fingers.